Okay. Boker Tov, Chodesh Tov, Chodesh Iyar. Iyar stands for Ani Hashem Rofecha. Everybody have a refuah shlema. Today we learned the Daf Chaf Gimel for refuah shlema for Akiva ben Chaim Baruch, and ben Chaya Rachel. His parents, Chaim Baruch the father, Chaya Rachel his mother. Says the Mishnah. We're actually in the middle of the Mishnah. We're about, let's pick it up from 4 lines into the 4 lines down on Chaf Gimel Varal. The Mishnah was talking about the first part of the Mishnah. Is actually there 3 or 4 or 5 Mishnayos in the Mishnayos. The first part of the Mishnah was talking about how Rav Shimon does not agree with the concept of schus tola. He says nothing. You're going to make fun if you say that schus does not that she had mitzvahs that she had will not suspend or delay her punishment. Then people will make fun of the water and say, look. Oh, you see, I committed adultery and she committed adultery. I know she did, and she didn't die, so I could do it also. And people who survive, people say that doesn't mean that she didn't commit adultery. Maybe it's chus tola. So Rav Shimon doesn't agree with that whole concept. Okay, but Rebbe says that it does, right? That she just deteriorates and eventually she'll die from the mincha. Then we went on to say that there are people whose mincha is burned up, meaning afterwards put into a kli. Right? If it didn't put into a klisharis, you could still be poted if it became tamei. Just change it for money, just like kedushas, something that's kedushas damim. It's not kedushas aguf. You could be poted for money. Something that's kedushas aguf, like an animal that you were makdish for a carbon, you cannot be poted unless it has a mum. Well, let's say it's a carbon minchas flour and it became tamei, then you have to burn it. Okay, where do you burn it? You burn it, as we'll say that you burn it on the Beis Hadeshim, which is a place in the Azara. Okay, then the Mishnah went on to say the following people, their carbon is burned if she admits that she's tamei, or Adam came and said she's tamei, or her husband doesn't want to, refuses to give her to drink now, he doesn't want to go through with it. In that case, he should get the ksuba, but he has to divorce her anyway, because once she's a sota, he has to divorce her unless she drinks. Or let's say her husband committed a sin. He had deal with her on the way, before, but between the time she had kidney and steer and the time she was ready to drink, she doesn't drink anymore because the water wouldn't check her. As we said, the water is you only drink water when it's going to check if she's tummy or not. But if it's not going to check, either because she admitted it or because something went wrong and it's not going to work on her, then she doesn't drink. And then we said in the 4th line, this is where we have the 4th line on Chaf Gimel, whoever's married to a Kohen, here's what here's the key here. A carbon mincha of a Yisrael or a Levi who brings a carbon mincha, what happens? We talked about the kmitza. You take the kmitza, the fistful, you burn it on the mizbeach, that's the haktara, and then the rest is eaten by the kohanim any way they want. We said as long as they don't turn it to chametz, they could put maple nuts on it and whatever other concoctions they can give it to you. You can make a nice cake out of it if you want, as long as you don't turn it into chametz. Long enough chametz you can eat anywhere. That's a regular mincha. The mincha of a kohen, if a kohen himself brings a mincha, let's say he brings an adava. We'll talk about if he has to bring it for a sin. That's, you don't do kmitza there. You burn the whole thing. There's no kmitza. That's of a kohen. Okay. And then he says, let's say a woman is, and it's only of a kohen, not a kahanas, not a bas kohen. Let's say a woman is married to a kohen. So they're burnt. What do you mean they're burnt? Now, as we'll see, because we have a problem over here, is it the husband's? If it's the husband's, he's a kohen, you burn the whole thing without a kmitza. If it's hers, though, right, bringing it for her, so she needs kmitza. She's not a kohen. A woman kohen is not a kohen. Called a kahanas over here, but she's not a kohen. As we'll see, she doesn't have the halachas of a kohen. So then you have to do kmitza. Okay, so what do you do? So you do kmitza, and then what do you do with the rest of it? The shiram, the rest of it, do you burn it or not? So here's the problem. If you burn it on the mizbeach, well, you're not supposed to do that, as we'll see in the Gemara. But what do you do with it? You can't eat it either, because really the kohen, her husband, has a share in it. So kohen says the kohen and chosein and stuff, they're burnt. How are they burnt? We'll talk about that. And Rashi says we're talking about all women who are married to a kohen, whether we're talking about the mincha of a sota or mincha of any other woman married to a kohen. Bas Yisrael shenisis l'kohen. If a bas Yisrael married to a kohen, minchas and esrefes. Again, that's what we mean over here. Chol nesuas l'kohen minchas and esrefes. And what do we mean that? Like a bas Yisrael is married to a kohen, her mincha is burnt. Again, not burnt like a kohen's where you burn the whole thing without kmitza, but you do kmitza on it and then you burn the rest. How do you burn it? We'll see. A kahanas shenisis Yisrael. Let's say a kahanas married to Yisrael minchas and achelas. Remember, a kahanas was married to a kahanas, a bas kohen. is not really a Kohen. So if she's married to Yisrael, her mincha is like any other mincha of a Yisrael. You do kamitza, and the rest is eaten by the Kohanim, the male Kohanim. Ma ben Kohen l'kedesteni. Before we get in to understand how her carbon is burnt, again, a mincha of a Kohen himself, the whole thing is burnt, no kamitza. The mincha of a Yisrael, you do kamitza, and the rest is eaten by the Kohanim. The mincha of a Kohen, of a bas Kohen, of any woman married to a Kohen, that's complicated. That we say is burnt. How is it burnt? We'll see. Ma ben Kohen, what's the difference in general between a Kohen and a Kohen? The rules between a man Kohen and a woman Kohen, meaning a bas Kohen. Minchas Kahana, Minchas Kahana is chaz. We said it's eaten. If she's a Kahana, she's like a Yisraelis in the sense her mincha is eaten. If she's married to a Yisrael, or she's even divorced or widowed, or she's not married at all, she's like a Yisrael, it's eaten. Meaning you do kamitza and the rest is eaten by the Kohanim. Minchas Kohen and Nechelas. Minchas Kohen is not eaten at all. The whole thing is burnt. No kamitza. Kahanas mischalas, the Kohen and mischal. If a Kahanas, right, if a Bas Kohen sleeps with the wrong person, she becomes a halala, and a Kohen can't marry her. Kohen and a mischal. A Kohen, let's say a Kohen commits a sin. He marries a Zona or a Grusha. Somebody's not supposed to marry. He's not mischal. That's the halach in the Torah. His children and the woman that he sleeps with becomes a halala. Right, but and the children become halalim, but not him. He did a terrible sin, but he doesn't become a halal. Kahanas matamala mesim, ben kohen mesim. We've said this many times. Who can't go to a funeral? A Kohen. We all know Kohen can't go to a Kohen. But let's say, Irving, if you had a sister, she could go to a funeral. She's not. She doesn't have a halacha like a Kohen. Kohen ocha b'kachi kashim ein kanas achalim. We say that every day. The zichri we talk about in the karbanos. What do we say? The carbon mincha, or the carbon chatas or osham, is eaten lezichrei kuhuna, we say. It's eaten by the males of the Kohanim. Male Kohanim could eat kachim, not bas Kohen. Ma ben ish isha. Once we're talking about all this, we got into the difference between a mincha of a bas Kohen to a mincha of a Kohen. So now we start to our mincha of somebody married to a Kohen versus mincha of a Kohen. So we said, okay, what are the differences between a Kohen and a Kohen? It doesn't mean this is all inclusive, but it means here's some differences. Ma ben ish isha. What's the difference in halacha between a man and a woman? We know when it comes to sins, the same it applies to all. If a woman chas v'chalila is machal Shabbos, if a woman commits adultery, she's the same punishment as a man. But what's the difference between a man and a woman? So here are some differences. Beish parei parem. If a man is a mitzorah, this week's parsha, mitzorah, right? Tazria really, because that's really the part. The mitzorah, Michael talks about how you purify yourself, but how you become a mitzorah is really in Tazria. So we're reading both parshas tomorrow, Mr. Shem. So if a man becomes a mitzorah, he also must let his hair grow wild, and he tears his garments like an ovel. The enisha parasmanas, but for tznius, a woman does. It's based on the pasuk, as we'll see. A woman could be mitzorah too, but she doesn't let her hair grow wild, nor does she rent her garments. Haish madras b'nov. We had this back in Nazir last Masechet, that if a man can make his son, his young son, who's not bar mitzvah, he can make him into a Nazir. He can make him a Nazir. The woman can't make her son, even though why not? They're both parents. That's the lachal mashmisina, as we'll see. If a man's father became a Nazir and he separated karbanos to bring his karbanos, he brings a chatas ola. Remember, he brings a chatas ola and shlom at the end, and he died. The man died, and he had karbanos. The son, who's also Nazir, he could also use those his father's karbanos. That's a special lachal mashmisina. He could use the karbanos of his father. But a woman doesn't use. They can't. If a woman becomes a Nazir, we learned that a woman could be a Nazirah, just like a man is a Nazir. And if her father died and set aside karbanos while he was a Nazir, and she became a Nazir too, a Nazirah, she can't use her father's karbanos. Again, a man has the power to marry off his young daughter, remember, until the age of 12 and a half. But a woman doesn't have that power. Only a man does. Remember, if a woman marries off her daughter, it's only a kedushin drabanan. It's not a real kedushin. She can walk away. The girl can walk away at age 12. A man up until the age of 12. A man member can marry off his daughter until the age of 12 and a half. But until the age of 12, a man can sell his daughter as a Jewish slave. Woman's not allowed to, based on the psukim. Only a man can. A man has that authority, not the wife. Another difference is a man, when he gets skila for committing a terrible sin, he is stoned naked. Not a woman. Against not a psukim, obviously because of kalos rosh, etc. People shouldn't see a woman naked. So a woman is not. She's stoned with her clothes on. After skila, they hang him up. That's part of the process. Is they throw him down from they he's not actually stoned to death. He's thrown off a big platform. Then they put a stone on him, and then he's hung up. Fa'ish nitla, a man is hung up. Anishin, that's not a woman. Again, based on Sikh, also. If a man steals and cannot pay it back, if he commits a burglary and cannot pay it back, he is sold as a slave. The Eina Isha, but a woman who stole and can't pay it back, she's got to, take out a long-term loan and pay it back. She'll always have the obligation, but she's not sold as a slave. These are some differences between men and women. But in general, for punishments, they get the same punishment. These are just different halachas. And Kati brings down, this isn't an all-inclusive list. He says, there are many other differences between man and woman. This is just some of them. There from the Mishnahs, he lists a few of them. For example, the Gemara in Kedushin says, a man who's a slave for 6 years, a woman can also be, we just learned that a man can sell off his daughter as a Jewish slave, and she goes out either when she becomes bat mitzvah at the age of 12 or 6 years, just like an Eved Ivri, whichever comes first. Let's say she says, I want to stay on, remember, and take the awl and put a hole in their ear and stays on till Yovel. That only applies to a man, not to a woman. There's another difference here. A man can break his daughter's netter arm. We talked about, remember, a man can break his daughter's netter up until the age of 12 and a half, but a woman cannot break her daughter's. A man is commanded for Rivya, not a woman. A man could be a Ben Sora Morer, right? The terrible, the rebellious son, not a woman. These things apply. Certain things apply to men, not to women. This is just so our mission is just a partialist. Doesn't mean to be all inclusive. Tan Rabbanan says the Gemara. Any man married to a Kohen, their carbon mincha is burnt. Now here's the problem. We said the Kohen. Remember again, the Kohen's own carbon mincha is totally burnt. No kamitza. Yisrael's, you do kamitza, and the Kohanim eat the rest of it. But a woman married to a Kohen, her mincha is burnt. And Rashi says we are achas mincha sota, v'achas mincha sota, whether we're talking about a sota or any mincha that a woman brings. If she's married to a Kohen, we have a problem. Because is it the Kohen's, in which case the whole thing is burnt with no kamitza. But on the other hand, she's not a Kohen, and it's her carbon, especially in the case of sota. Some of Farshim say it's only going on sota. Rashi says it's on sota and a nevava. Says, now how do you burn it? Kate said, here's the problem. How do you burn it? You do kamitza, fine, because she's not really a Kohen. So you have to do kamitza. But what do you do with the rest of it? You have to burn the rest. It says Mishnahs, you burn it. Where do you burn it? The problem is going to be burning it on the mizbeach is a problem because it's not a carbon. And you can't, once you burn some of it, you can't burn the rest of it, as we'll see. So where do you burn it? So yes, that's more the deal. Kate said, any Jewish woman, just like married to a Kohen, those are the only people that a Kohen can marry. You can't marry a mamzer for sure, but a zoner or anybody else you can't marry. So, or a gioris, right? Just the Kohen. You can't eat it because he has a share in it, right? She's married to a Kohen. The Kohen has a share in it, so therefore you can't eat it after you did kamitza. The rest of it cannot be eaten by like a regular mincha of a Yisrael can't be eaten because the Kohen has a share in it. And we learn anything that a pasuk says kol minchas Kohen kol yol taktor, it's got to be burnt. So what do? You can't eat it because the husband has a share in it. He's a Kohen. Ein olo kol, you can't burn it totally on the mizbeach because she has a share in it, and the mincha of a non-Kohen is supposed to be eaten. It's not supposed to be burnt. So what do you do with it? Ella, what do you do? So here's what you do: a kometz kar ba'atzmo. You mark of the kometz, the handful. You bring that, you mark her that, like that. You do like as if she's a Yisrael. She's a Yisraelis. V'hashirayim kreivim ba'atzmon, and you burn the rest of it by itself. Okay, so you don't burn the whole thing like a Kohen directly, and you don't eat it because he has a share in it. So you burn the rest by itself. Says the Gemara, that's a problem. Ikri Kam, we have a drasha. Kol shemimenu. It says Kol shemimenu. It says Ki Chol Sar B'Chol Dvash Lo Shekimenu. It doesn't say Sachliv Lashem. It says Lo Shekimenu Lashem, meaning Darshan Kol shemimenu. Anything that part of it was already burnt. In this case, the kometz and a regular animal carbon, it would be like the emurim, which are burnt on the mizbeach, and the dam is thrown on the mizbeach. Kolshim menelishim, anything which is already burnt, harehu baltik, you can't burn anymore. Once you start burning it, you burn part of it, you can't burn the rest of it. For example, I have a carbon chatas. The chatas animal, you brought it, right? You did shrita, kabbalah, chazrika, the Kohen did the whole process, and you burn the emurim. What do you do with the meat? What do you do with the meat of a carbon chatas? Eaten by the Kohen. Let's say you want to burn it. Can you burn it on the mizbeach? No, you're not allowed to. Once you burn part of it, you're not allowed to burn the rest. It has to be eaten. So what do you do over here? What do you do with the rest with the shirayim of the carbon mincha of a Jewish woman who's married to a Kohen? She's not a Kohen, because even a Bas Kohen is not a Kohen. She's married to a Kohen. What do you do with it? You can't eat it because he's a Kohen. You can't burn it on the Mizbeach because you've already burned part of it. Amar Rav Shimon, Pasi, the Masal Shemetz. Here's what you do: you burn it on the Mizbeach, but you don't can burn it on the Mizbeach like a carbon. You burn it as if it's wood. Just like throw it up for firewood. Pretend it's firewood. That Kurab Lazar, the time of Lazar Omer, he darshan because it says afterwards you shouldn't bring it. The next pasuk says a reich nichoch. You can't put on this beach for reich nichoch. In other words, for a pleasant smell for God, as if it's a carbon, right? That you can't do. Aval tamala l'shemetzim. You can bring it up for wood. That you could do. Not everybody holds to the brush of kol shemeni l'Hashem. Rashi brings down Shita Rav Shimon, but that's not our issue right now. If you hold that issue, most people hold kosher. Once you burn part of it, you can't burn the rest of it. So Rav Shimon Pasi says, you know what? Rav Shimon says you do it like Rav Lazar. Rav Lazar says you can't burn it as a carbon. Burn it as wood. Just pretend it's wood. You're throwing it up there. Where does he say that? He says a famous case like this. You have an ola. You can't burn the meat of a carbon, except of course which carbon? An ola, which is totally burnt, right? Let's say you have this. You're bringing karbanos all day. You have an ola. They did the avod of the ola. And now you have the limbs and the parts of the animal, which have to be cut up and burnt on the mizbeach. And somebody also brought a carbon chatas, which is you zarek the dam and you burn the emurim on the mizbeach, but the rest is eaten by the kohanim. Now the animals, once they're all cut up and meat, it all looks the same. So they mixed up the carbon chatas with an ola. Ola has to be burnt. Chatas is not allowed to be burnt. So what do you do with all these limbs and parts of the animal? So Abla says, you know what? You put the whole thing on the mizbeach and you say, the parts that are chatas should be like firewood, and the parts that are oil I'm burning as a carbon. That's what he says. So the Gemara now says, "Hanichel, that's good according to Blazer. If you hold, you can do that. The Islay Isfar holds you could do that. The Rabbanan, the Islay Isfar, Mike Lamemer. What did the Rabbanan say? The Rabbanan don't hold to that proposition. You pretend it's firewood. It's not firewood. They say you can't do that, right? So what they say, you have to wait till the whole thing goes bad, and then you take it out to the base station. You have to wait till it decomposes. Basically, you can't put chatos meat on the mizbeach. So what do? You go like Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon knows nothing. Rav Shimon Omer hakometz karbatzmo. You're right. This carbon mincha of a woman, right? Here he's talking really about a different case. He's talking about the mincha of a chot. There's a shaila about if a kohen. We talk about minchas the dove. If a kohen wants to bring a mincha, the whole thing is burnt no kmitza. What about if he sinned? He did a sin for which a poor kohen can bring a mincha offering, like he swore falsely, or he denied testimony, or he came into the base of Mikdash in a state of tumah b'shogeg. So he brings this kind of a carbon mincha if he's poor. And what do you do with it? So some say it's like that of a Yisrael. Only a mincha nadav of a kohen is totally burnt, but the mincha of a kohen that committed a sin, it's like that of a Yisrael, and you do kmitza. Okay, so what do you do with the rest of it? It still that belongs to a kohen. What do you do with the rest of it? It can't be eaten because he's a kohen. So what do you do? So that's the issue. So Blazer of Shimon says you bring the kometz your makra by itself. Vashirayim is possible by sedeshen. No, you don't burn it on the mizbeach because we don't hold of Rav Blazer's idea that you can pretend it's firewood. That's Rav Blazer. Not everybody holds to that. Oh, but you could do this. Rav Blazer of Shimon says what you do is okay. You bring the kometz by itself. In the case of a kohen who's a chote, and we'll apply the same thing in the case of a wife of a kohen because she's not a kohen. She then goes, what do you do with the rest of it? You don't burn on the mizbeach. You burn it in the Beis Hadeshin. You burn it on the side, not on the mizbeach. That's what we call Hashirayim Mispazman al Beis Hadeshin. There's a shalom here. What is the Beis Hadeshin? Remember we said there's one Beis Hadeshin outside of Yerushalayim where they burn the paraduma, and there's another one on Harabayas, and there's one in the Azara, and then there's a Makom Hadeshin. You remember where they take the Chumas Hadeshin each morning and they put that next to the Kevesh on the Mizbeach. So some say Beis Hadeshin here is that Makom Hadeshin, and some say no, it's a fireplace. It's actually a fireplace in the Azara. But in any case, that's what Lazar Shimon says. So back to our issue, at the end of the day, if you don't put it on the Mizbeach, what do you do with the mincha of a woman married to a Kohen? Okay, she's not a Kohen. So she's not a Kohen, you have to do Kamitza. And what do you do with the rest of it? You can't put it on the Mizbeach because she's not a Kohen. And you can't eat it because the Kohen has a share in it too. What you do is you destroy it, you burn it next to the Mizbeach. There's Gemara on the base. I feel Rabbanan Rav Shimon. Even the Rabbanan only argue with Rav Shimon, and they say no, that the whole thing is burnt. The Rabbanan say, talk about that case of a mincha of a kohen who sinned. Feel Rabbanan Rav Shimon. They say it's a mincha chavas. It's like a mincha. The whole thing is burnt with no kmitza. Even the Rabbanan only argue with Rav Shimon. Elba minchas chote shel kohanim the basakravi, because he is a kohen. If it's his sin, the difference is, do you hold that the mincha of a kohen chote is like the mincha of a kohen on a dava or not? So they argue, say, but it's still the kohen. So they say the whole thing has to be burnt, no kamitza. Aval b'hovet, in this case where it's the wife of a kohen, where she's not really a kohen, even the Rabbanan would be motive that the solution would be to do the kamitza and put that on his bath, and the rest of it is burnt in the Beis Hadeshen, either Makom Hadeshen or the Beis Hadeshen, not on the mizbeach. Mishnah said, Bas Yisrael Nesua, if Bas Yisrael who's married to a Kohen, right? What do we say? Bas Yisrael, Shenisus LaKohen, Minchas Nesrefes, V'kan Yisrael, and then we said that, so he said, Bas Yisrael Nesua, my timer. What's this reason where we say that what's the reason why the Mincha of a Kahanis is eaten, right? If she's a Bas Yisrael or if she's a Kahanis, Bas Kohen is also like Israel is eaten, where she's not married to a Kohen. And when she's married to a Kohen, it's not eaten, right? But it's also not totally burnt, as we said. Part of it is used as kmitza, and the rest is put on the deshen. What's the difference? Because it says that my time Kohen kolotia, the mincha of a Kohen male, that has to be totally burnt. Lo seichel, shouldn't be eaten at all, right? Kohen below Kahanis, only a Kohen, not a Kahanis. Kahanis again here means Bas Kohen. Only that of a Kohen is totally burnt with no kmitza. But that of a Yisraelis or any woman or a Bas Kohen married to a Yisrael or married to a Kohen, we're talking even married to a Kohen, any woman married to a Kohen, her carbon have to have kmitza, and the shirayim are burnt on the Beis Hadeshen, as we said. That would be a solution according to everybody. Kahanis mischalos and Kohen mischal. If she's a Bas Kohen, or right, she can be mischal if she married. She's not supposed to be married to somebody. She could be married the wrong person. For example, married a mamzer or something like that, married somebody she's not supposed to marry, she becomes a halala. So she was about a Kohen, not minal. How do we know? You might say, is it fair? If a man commits this kind of a wrong marriage, he doesn't become a halal, but a woman does. Minal says, well, zaro. If he marries a grusha or a zona, somebody he's not supposed to marry by a Kohen, it says, zaro mischalo. His children, his seed will become halal, but who ain't a mischal? He doesn't become. He's a sinner. And maybe they wouldn't let him do the abode as long as he's still married to her. It says like Rashi says it says it could say lo yachel and says lo yachalel, two lamas to teach me one law. He ruins her, right? And echad zaro and his children are also mechulal.
What's the negative
of that you can't serve as a Kohen. The positive is you can go to a funeral. Right. You can't. A halal means you cannot do it. You cannot do it.
But in the case where a Kohen marries a grusha,
right.
He can do it.
He can still do it. Well, the rabbis today probably wouldn't allow it. There's a whole shiloh whether you're allowed to do it or not. As long as politics and as long as married to it. But he's not a halal. Correct. He's not a halal. Secondly, he's not a halal. He's a sinner, but he's not a halal. It doesn't make him a halal. There's advantages to being a halal. That you don't have you can marry a grusha. Things like that. There's all kind, that's you can marry grusha and you can go to funerals and things like that. He's not a Kohen. Kahanis metama, a Bas Kohen can become tamei, so she can go to a funeral. A man can't. What's my time? The pasuk is emor ela kohanim. When it talks about emor kohanim, the nefesh loyitam ba'amav, that kohanim are not supposed to become tamei, meis, not supposed to go to a funeral. My time, the pasuk is emor kohanim b'nei Aaron. It says to the kohen b'nei Aaron blows Aaron. Very simple. The prohibition of becoming tamei is only on males of the priestly tribe and not females. Kohen ochel b'kachim kachim. Kohen is kachim d'chsiv. Kol zachar b'nei Aaron tachlana. Very simple. And we say that every day. Said in Ezom Makoman that chol lezichrei kahuna. Only the males of Kohanim can eat it, not females. Ma ben ish isha. What's the same manner? We're talking about ish and li'ala ish. Talks about here. We're talking about what? This is today's right. They're talking about Tazria Mitzorah. Ela ish. That's only it says ish. Ish. How do we know that a woman can also become a Mitzorah? We're already talking about the whole parsha. What does it have to say Hatzarua? We know we're talking about him already. Why does it say Hatzarua? To tell me it doesn't have to be a man. A woman can also be a Mitzorah. Pardon? That's right. Exactly. Right. But you might say maybe that was a one-time effect. How do we know that she has the halacha in general Hatzarua, you could have tzaras today. The tzaras that she has was not, she was turned white and all that. Not necessarily didn't follow the same procedures that we have in today's Parshas HaShavua. So how do we know that maybe that was only her? Maybe that was a special thing. Hashem made her a mitzvah. How do we know that it applies to women today? Because it's Vatzarua Sheboa Nega. Harekan Shnaim. Im Kematam. So why to say Ish? Ish Para. Because then a man, because it talks about Shalamata, and those are talking about the next pasuk. Because it doesn't mean below the belt. It means Shalamata. The next pasuk talks about that he has to have his hair grow wild and his garment should be torn. In that sense, we're talking about the ish, only the man, not the woman. Ish matters beno benazir. A man can make his young son be a nazir, make him into a nazir, and he can reject it later on, but he is a nazir as long as he didn't reject it. But a woman cannot make her son. We have this Gemara nazir that it's alacha Moshe Sinai. There's no pasuk for it. Similarly, ish megalach nazir. If a man's father was a nazir and he separated karbanos, and he died before he brought the karbanos, before he completed his nazirus. It says over there that we had the Gemara Nazir that the son can use those karbanas, but not a woman. Why? Again, the same Rabbi Yochanan said, both these are halacha Sinai, that a man can make his son a Nazir and he can use his father's karbanas when he's a Nazir. We know a man can marry off his young daughter even against her will. That's what he can do, but not a mother, only a man, not the woman. The chsiv as beating asat ishazeh. That's what we learn from this pasuk. This, of course, is in the parsha of Motzi Shem as beating asat ishazeh. I am the one who has the power to give my daughter over, and we've heard all kinds of problems that arise out of that when there's fights in families. And remember, he said he married off his young daughter, and they're fighting over a divorce. A man could go today, they have a young daughter, a baby, whatever, and he could accept kedushin from some guy for his daughter. She's married to that guy. She doesn't even know who he is, but he has the power to accept kedushin for her, just like it's a real marriage. Pardon?
Despite his wife.
Despite his wife, yeah. Wife or no wife, right? Again, the pasuk says that a man can sell off his daughter. This is only until the age of 12, not 12 and a half, not a woman. The pasuk says that, a man, not a woman. A man is buried, is stoned naked. My time, it says V'ragmu oso. Now we know that they're both stoned if they committed some adultery. Like, for example, let's say a nar marasa, a woman who is betrothed to a man, and she commits adultery on purpose with some adulterer. They're both stoned. But when it says Ragmu oso, what is that? My also ilay oso below oso. Do you mean only the adulterer, not the adulteress is stoned? But you take the man and or the woman, both of them, whoever you're punishing now, they're both killed. Ella oso below ksusu. Tell the oso him without his oso, as if to say him alone, meaning with no clothes. Below oso below ksusos, and say, what do you mean oso? She's killed too. Oso means to say him is by himself, unclothed, whereas the woman has clothes. Haisha nitla, man is hung and not after skila they hung him up. So Haisha nitla, man is hung up and not is hanged, I guess is the right word, hanged, right? Not hung, right? It's hanged, right? He is hung, but the correct verb for hanging a man is he was hanged, right? That's right. Yeah. Didn't you ever hear say in the Yiddish there's a saying, you talk properly that in a family where Rahman al-San, the Goyim killed some man, they hanged him. You don't tell them, could you please hang up my coat? You don't use that lashon. His coat is not hung. You don't use that lashon because it's the same kind of a thing. But Michael is correct. You say coat is hung up and a man is hanged. He's hanged. No, he's hanged. He's not hanged up. You hang up a coat.
Once he's up there, he's hung.
He is up there. Right. But you say he's hanged. Okay, that's the correct. My time, I'm going to if a man is killed and you hang him up, right? You hang him up. You hang up. Below Sanaher. So if a man steals and can't pay back, he is sold for his geneva. He's also going to be sold in different circumstances if he's poor. But she's not sold forcibly because she stole. Right? So, as we said, a woman could be sold. A man can sell off his daughter, right? But she is not sold. In other words, if she stole and she can't be forced into slavery to pay back her what she stole. My timer. What's the reason why V'nimkar b'gneva so? Again, the Big says if he is sold for his gneva so, his gneva, not her gneva. That completes the parak. Tomorrow's daf will start with this parak, with the beginning of the parak. Tomorrow's daf Chaf Dalet, and that's already been pre-recorded, so that'll be on the podcast daf Chaf Dalet. On Sunday morning, Emir Hashem, we will start on the third line on Chaf Hey. Chaf Hey, the third line, Iboilu. It's a very important daf. Make sure you listen to the podcast or learn it on your own. It's about does a Arus or Shemeres Yavim also drink or not, and different rules about who drinks and who doesn't drink. That'll be on Shabbos daf. Have a good day. Chodesh Tov, Shabbat Shalom, Tetulam, Refuah Shalema. Again, ER is Ani Hashem Rofecha.
A good Shabbos.